Okay, so if you're listening right now, chances are pretty high you've got some kind of microcomputer strapped to you, maybe your wrist, maybe your finger.
Yeah, an Apple Watch, a Fitbit, maybe an Oura Ring, they're everywhere.
Exactly. And these things are, well, they're tiny, but incredibly sophisticated. They give us amazing personalized insights.
hmm They're continuously collecting really intimate biometric signals. We're talking heart rate, HRV,
Right, heart rate variability, sleep stages too, SexPO, which is your blood oxygen level. It feels like we get personalization, maybe early warnings.
and a sense of control, right,
Yeah.
over our own health, which is powerful.
It is. But the stack of sources we've looked at for today, they really force us to look past just the convenience factor.
Definitely.
So our mission for this deep dive is to try and quickly unpack the really complex cybersecurity and, frankly, ethical implications of all this data collection.
And specifically focusing on that blurring line, or sometimes, completely erased line between what counts as medical data versus just lifestyle analytics.
Yeah, that's the core tension, isn't it? How can the exact same heart rate reading be like a super regulated clinical signal in one context?
Like detecting AFib, maybe with FDA clearance.
Right, and then almost instantly turn around and be used as just a tool for hyper-targeted marketing or to calculate some company's proprietary readiness score.
It's a huge...
Shem, in this industry, it's not niche, it's growing like crazy. Global revenues were, what, $61 billion in 2022?
Yeah, around there. And projected to hit something like $231 billion by 2032. Massive numbers.
Wow.
And that staggering growth, that's exactly why this deep dive is so critical for you, the listener.
Okay.
Because when technology that's designed to, improve your personal wellness operates in what's essentially a regulatory gray zone,
Yeah.
well, the implications for your autonomy are huge.
So it affects more than just our step count.
Oh, absolutely. We need to understand the whole ecosystem. It's not just the device maker. It's the insurers, potentially employers, analytics vendors, third-party app developers. They're all stakeholders in your raw data stream.
Yeah.
And if you only focus on the immediate benefit, the cool graphs in the app, you miss the profound risks that are kind of lurking downstream.
Okay, let's really unpack that blurring line then. How the data is generated, where it goes. The core idea seems to be this dual identity.
Exactly. Raw physiological data, like that continuous heart rate stream, it gets instantly processed into derived metrics.
Things like stress scores or maybe estimated calorie burn, sleep quality.
Right, so it becomes simultaneously medical in potential and lifestyle in application.
So explain that distinction a bit more, medical versus lifestyle.
Well, on one hand, you've got features intended for specific diagnostic purposes. Think the Apple Watch ECG function that sought regulatory clearance. That's leaning medical data.
Okay.
But on the other hand, it's lifestyle analytics.
Sure.
The same physical activity or the same sleep pattern, it's quantified, but not necessarily for diagnosis. It's maybe to optimize your daily routine or to improve engagement with the app.
Or, like we said, to feed algorithms that target ads at you.
Precise.
And you see this split in the devices themselves, right? Apple seems to push towards those high-fidelity, sometimes regulated features like ECG,
More clinical focus at times?
whereas something like the Oura Ring focuses heavily on, say, respiration rate and skin temperature to calculate that readiness score.
Yeah, and that score is designed pretty much purely for the consumer optimization market. It's classic lifestyle analytics.
Okay, so the data gets generated, but it doesn't just stay on the device. Talk us through that pipeline.
Right, so step one is the actual sensing and maybe some basic pre-processing right there on the tiny device itself.
And then step 2, it syncs.
Yeah, usually over Bluetooth, often encrypted, sending that data stream to the companion app on your phone.
Okay, device to phone. Then what?
From there, it typically hits the cloud, uploaded for long-term storage and ingestion into the company's bigger systems.
And this is where it starts to get a bit murky, right? The analytics stage.
Definitely murky. This is where proprietary black box machine learning models get to work. They analyze that massive data stream.
Your sleep, your heart rate, activity, everything.
Everything, yeah. To produce those derivative metrics we talked about. Your sleep score, stress score, recovery window, whatever the company sells.
But hang on, if it's a black box, how much control do we actually have? Or even visibility into how those scores are made? Are we just supposed to blindly trust the output?
That's the perfect question. Because, honestly, the transparency is often minimal to non-existent. These proprietary models, they're built to generate value for the company.
Mm.
That doesn't always mean perfect accuracy or transparency for the user.
Okay, so there's a trust issue there.
A big one. And what's really fascinating and maybe a bit disturbing is what we call the inference threat.
Inference threat, what's that?
This continuous stream of data creates a vast digital footprint. It's way more revealing than you might think.
How so?
Even if the individual data points seem benign, like just your step count or heart rate, combining them maybe with other data sets
Yeah.
enables these inferential threats, meaning deductions can be made about really intimate details. Things like early pregnancy markers, shifts in mental health states, even pre-symptomatic signs of illness.
Whoa.
And crucially, without you ever explicitly consenting to that specific deduction being made about you.
So my low activity levels recorded on a Sunday don't just mean I was relaxing.
Right. To a commercial pipeline, that could be interpreted as a signal you're potentially burnt out, maybe depressed.
And then suddenly I'm seeing ads for mental wellness apps or, I don't know, sleep aids.
Exactly. Is that constant transformation of your intimate physiological data into a direct and often quite profitable marketing tool. That's a central tension here.
Okay, that leads directly into security then. If this data is so valuable for inference and marketing, what are the security risks? Is it actually protected?
Well, the value itself creates risk. Sources indicate biometric records can fetch a high price on the dark web. Some estimates go up to $250 per record.
$250 for one person's data.
Yep. That huge financial incentive naturally ramps up the security risks exponentially.
Hmm.
Someone wants that data.
And I guess the problem isn't just hackers, it's maybe the companies themselves. Varying standards.
That's a huge part of it. You have major players like Apple and Aura who generally use strong encryption. We're talking AES 256, TLS 1.2 plus IO1. Basically banking-grade security for data in transit and often at rest.
Okay, that sounds good.
It is. But other vendors, well, they've faced valid criticism for past breaches, sometimes weaker authentication protocols. Fitbit, for example, has been under scrutiny before. And even with the best vendors, you still have inherent risks. Vulnerabilities in Bluetooth protocols pop up. Flaws in firmware updates can create openings. These are perpetual concerns across the board.
And these are just theoretical risks, are they? There have been actual incidents.
Oh, absolutely. We have major incidents that show exactly where the weak points are. Remember the Fitbit Get Health data breach back in 2021?
Vaguely, yeah. What happened there?
Over 61 million records were exposed. And this wasn't just anonymized stuff. It included names, birth dates, detailed sleep patterns, really sensitive information.
Wow. And how did that happen? Was it the watch?
No, and that's the key point. The vulnerability wasn't the Fitbit device itself, but a misconfigured database linked to Get Health, a third-party wellness platform that integrated with Fitbit.
Ah, so the risk extends to anyone they share data with.
Precisely. Access granted to partners is a massive, often overlooked weak spot in the ecosystem.
Okay, that's data theft. What about just losing access?
That's another critical angle. Remember the Garmin ransomware outage in 2020?
Oh, yeah, that shut them down for days, didn't it?
It did, and it perfectly demonstrated the availability risk. If the vendor's cloud services get compromised or simply go dark, users can be totally denied access to all their historical health data, even current services.
So you can't even see your own runs or sleep data.
Exactly. It's a stark reminder of just how dependent we become on these centralized systems we don't actually control.
Connecting this back to privacy then, you mentioned de-identified data earlier. Is that a real solution? Can they just strip our names off and it's fine?
That's often presented as a solution, but it's largely a myth, and a dangerous one.
Why dangerous?
Because aggregation and context are often enough to re-identify or at least reveal sensitive patterns. The classic example is the Strava Heatmap incident from 2018.
What was that?
Strava published this cool map showing aggregated running and cycling routes from all its users worldwide. It was supposed to be anonymous, just showing where people exercise.
Okay.
But the visualizations were so detailed, especially in remote areas, that they inadvertently reveal the locations, layouts, and even patrol routes, the pattern of life around secret military bases and intelligence facilities.
Whoa. Just from aggregated running data.
Just from aggregated, supposedly non-personal data,
Yeah.
it proved that even data stripped of direct identifiers can leak highly sensitive contextual patterns when combined and analyzed. Aggregation isn't anonymization.
That lack of real anonymization, combined with the lack of transparency we talked about, it feeds into a huge power imbalance, doesn't it?
Completely.
Huh.
Users often have very little real awareness of the full scope of the consent they're giving. It's usually buried deep within those end-user license agreements.
The EOLAs.
Yeah, the things nobody ever reads.
Guilty.
We all are.
Yeah.
And that lack of informed consent really compounds the trust issue. The Google acquisition of Fitbit is a perfect case study here.
How so?
Well, Google made very public commitments not to use the Fitbit health and wellness data for its ad targeting business.
Okay, that sounds like a good promise.
It does. But lasting user concerns and skepticism remain, precisely because we understand how incredibly valuable that continuous health data could be for profiling and advertising. Public promises are one thing, but the commercial incentive is always there.
So trust is easily eroded.
Especially when people feel like data about their own bodies is becoming a commodity they didn't explicitly agree to sell.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly then into the ethical concerns and this regulatory void you mentioned, because it sounds like that lack of clear rules is what allows some of these security and privacy issues to fester commercially.
That's exactly right. A primary ethical issue is that functionality gap linked to those proprietary black box algorithms we discussed.
The ones calculating our scores.
Yes. The heavy reliance on AI and machine learning inherently limits transparency. It's incredibly hard, if not impossible, for an external party or even the user to audit how a stress score is calculated or why an inference about their health state might have been made.
Which opens the door to, what, just errors?
Errors, yes, but what we might call algorithmic harm. Not necessarily because the company's malicious, but because the code might be flawed, biased, or simply not validated properly across different populations.
And we've seen actual user harm from inaccurate data, haven't we?
We have. Take the controversy around the Apple Watch's AFib detection feature. Now, it's undoubtedly clinically valuable for many,
Yeah.
but it has also faced scrutiny for generating false positives.
Meaning it tells someone they might have AFib when they don't?
Exactly. And that can lead to significant user anxiety, unnecessary doctor visits, costly tests, essentially the risk of over-medicalization. People start worrying intensely or seeking treatment based on potentially inaccurate data from their watch.
That's a direct harm from the tech itself.
Yes, and the ethical issues also spill dramatically into areas like employment and personal autonomy.
How so?
We've seen workplace wearable programs emerge. There was a case with BP, for instance, apparently using Fitbit data as part of employee wellness initiatives.
So your employer might see your step count or sleep data?
Potentially, yes, depending on the program structure. And this instantly raises serious red flags about coercion. Is participation truly voluntary if there are incentives or worse, penalties involved?
Right.
It also brings up potential discrimination based on health status derived from these metrics and fundamental limits on personal autonomy when your health data is being monitored by your employer.
It's fascinating, too, how the technical limitations you mentioned earlier connect directly to bigger social justice issues.
They absolutely do. We have to talk about algorithmic bias. It can start with the hardware itself.
Like the sensors.
Yeah, those PPG sensors, the little green or red lights on the back of your watch that measure pulse by shining light through your skin.
Okay.
Research has shown they can have reduced accuracy on darker skin tones.
Serious?
Yes. The physics of light absorption is different. So if the initial research, the algorithm training, the product testing disproportionately involves people with lighter skin.
Which often happens in tech and medical research.
Right. Then the resulting algorithms, when applied broadly for health predictions or diagnostics, could be less accurate for people with darker skin, potentially exacerbating existing health inequalities.
Wow. So the tech itself might not serve everyone equally.
That's a major concern.
So with all these risks, security, privacy, ethics, bias, why aren't we better protected? Where are the standard health privacy laws in all this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the core reason is that the main existing frameworks, they just fail to capture this specific type of technology effectively.
Like HIPAA in the U.S. I hear about that all the time.
Right. HIPAA is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. It provides strong protections, but it only applies to covered entities.
Which are?
Think hospitals, doctors' offices, health insurance companies, and their direct business associates. It generally doesn't apply to the tech company making you a fitness tracker or wellness app.
So Fitbit, Oura, maybe even Apple Health data isn't typically covered by HIPAA?
Not directly, no. These companies often intentionally classify their products as wellness or lifestyle tools, precisely to avoid the much stricter FDA oversight and compliance burdens that come with being classified as a full medical device.
That sounds like finding a loophole.
It's often called regulatory arbitrage, basically exploiting the gaps between existing legal categories. And the result is wildly inconsistent privacy and security obligations across market. Some companies do more, some do less. There's no single standard.
And this regulatory vacuum, this gray area, it kind of feeds into a broader concept some researchers talk about, right? Surveillance capitalism.
Precisely. It fits perfectly. The idea is the constant, uninterrupted collection and quantification of, well, your entire human experience.
My sleep, my stress, my steps, heart rate, skin temperature.
Everything. All translated into behavioral data streams, primarily for commercial purposes, whether that's targeting ads, developing new products, or creating new markets for inferred insights.
So the technology normalizes this continuous monitoring.
Exactly. And in that model, the dynamic shifts. You, the user, are not just the customer using the device. Your data, your behavior, your quantified self. That becomes the product being analyzed and potentially sold.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. So what does this all mean for us right now? Let's try to wrap up with some practical steps. We need systemic change, clearly, but what can the individual listener actually do today to maybe reclaim a little bit of control?
Yeah, it's crucial not to feel completely powerless. There are actionable steps you can take.
Okay, like what?
First, really dig into your device and app settings. Audit what data is being shared, especially with third parties, and severely limit it. Prioritize opt-in mechanisms only. Don't just accept the defaults.
Turn things off unless you explicitly need them on.
Exactly. Second, basic security hygiene is critical. Use strong, unique passwords and enable two-factor authentication wherever it's offered for your associated accounts.
And keep the software updated.
Absolutely. Apply those firmware updates for the device and app updates promptly. They often contain crucial security patches.
Okay, settings, security. What else?
And crucially, as tedious as it is, try to educate yourself on those EULAs or privacy policies. Look specifically for language about downstream data. Uses things like commercial partnerships, research programs they might share data with.
Understand where your data might end up after the company collects it.
Right. And if the device or app allows it, consider periodically reviewing and maybe deleting older historical data that you don't actively need for your own tracking purposes. Reduce that footprint over time.
Those are good individual actions. But what about the bigger picture? Systemic change.
Yeah, individual action is necessary but not sufficient. We need industry and policy mandates to really shift the needle.
What should developers be doing?
Developers and the companies themselves need to adopt robust privacy by design principles from the very start. Don't just bolt on privacy features later.
Make it foundational.
Yes. And commit to more transparent algorithms. Maybe not revealing the entire secret sauce, but providing more clarity on how scores are derived and what data influences them. And definitely offer users more granular controls over their data by default, rather than burying options layers deep in menus.
Make control easy and obvious.
Exactly.
And for policymakers, what's the call to action there?
Policymakers urgently need to step in and establish new, clear legal categories specifically for sensitive biometric data generated by consumer wearables. We need rules that address this regulatory gray zone head-on.
Close the loophole.
Yes. And furthermore, there's a real need to harmonize international regulations. Think about extending the core principles of strong frameworks like GDPR in Europe more globally. That would help close the jurisdictional gaps that companies can currently exploit by choosing where they process and store this incredibly intimate data.
Makes sense. Consistent rules everywhere.
It would certainly help level the playing field for user protection.
Wow. Okay, this has been a really insightful, if slightly unsettling, deep dive.
It often is with this topic.
So to try and summarize, these consumer wearables, they offer truly incredible potential for personalized health, for self-empowerment, for early detection. That promise is real. But that empowerment seems to be constantly weighed against these profound risks we've discussed. Risks of data misuse, security breaches, commercial exploitation through inferred metrics we didn't consent to.
And all underpinned by a currently inadequate regulatory landscape that leaves our most intimate biometric traces often dangerously unprotected. And the sources we review today are pretty clear on the stakes. The unchecked commodification of our biometric data really risks transforming these potentially empowering devices
From tools of self-improvement.
into instruments of surveillance and potentially discrimination.
That's a stark warning.
It is. So maybe here's a final provocative thought for you to consider as we wrap up. If your readiness score, Or your calculated stress levels derived by some opaque AI algorithm you don't understand could one day influence your ability to get a job or how much you pay for insurance. Have we fundamentally lost control over the definition and even the value of our own health?
That's a heavy question.
It is. And maybe the real question is, what steps are you personally willing to take to protect the data generated by your own body?